Now, we all know that caries is the interaction of the factors which is involved, and the same holds true for even early childhood caries. So, there's a play between all these factors which leads to caries in our early childhood. So, let's see the etiology and the pathogenesis. We all know that caries itself has got a multifactorial etiology with a very time-dependent interplay. This word is very, very important. Time-dependent interplay between the microflora, that is the plaque, the substrate, which means your fermentable carbohydrates, and the host, which means the saliva and the teeth. So we will see each one in detail. In the presence of fermentable carbohydrates, the acidogenic plaque bacteria, namely the mutant streptococci and lactobacilli, they produce lactic acid, which demineralizes the calcium phosphate mineral of enamel and dentine. I'm sure you students remember this from your oral pathology, what we had learned, the pathogenesis of dental caries. So if this process is not arrested or is not reversed via remineralization, it will progress to cavitation. As you can see in this slide, there are a lot of protective factors and you could have different pathologic factors. So depending upon where the balance is going, the caries would occur. The protective factors are your salivary flow, your peptides, that means they are your defensins, and the fluorides. And the pathologic factors are definitely your cariogenic bacteria, out of which the main one is Streptococcus mutans, the carbohydrates, and reduced salivary flow. In ECC, the demineralization process is accentuated as the bacterial flora and the host defense system in the infant is incompletely developed. The newly erupted enamel surfaces have thinner enamel. The post-eruptive enamel maturation has not yet occurred, and the tooth could have hypoplastic enamel defects. So all this contributes to the formation of early caries. Coming to the first etiologic factor, that is your tooth. ECC has a characteristic pattern of formation related to the emergence sequence of the primary teeth. The upper incisors are usually the first and the most severely affected. The lower teeth are not affected usually. Why? Because of the protective pooling of saliva and the tongue position during feeds. The length of caries activity determines the other teeth affected. And the upper first molars, then the upper second molars, the canines, and lastly the lower teeth. This is the sequence which is followed in case of early childhood caries. Coming to tooth maturation and defects, the newly exposed enamel surfaces undergo final stages of post-eruptive maturation and hardening when ions such as fluoride are incorporated. The period immediately after eruption and prior to the final maturation is when the tooth is most susceptible to caries. So, a combination of recently erupted immature enamel in an environment of cariogenic flora with frequent ingestion of fermentable carbohydrates renders the teeth susceptible to caries. What are the developmental defects of enamel? You could have partial or total enamel hypoplasia. You could have a change in translucency, that means the teeth could become opaque, or you could have generalized enamel defects in the primary dentition, which includes hereditary diseases, acquired prenatal and postnatal conditions such as birth prematurity, low birth weight, infections, malnutrition, metabolic disorders and chemical toxicity, or maybe localized trauma and infections. So this was all about the tooth part, that how does it land up getting early childhood caries. The second factor which is important is the cariogenic bacteria. We all know that the main pathologic bacteria responsible for dental caries is the Streptococci mutans, followed by Streptococcus sobrinis, sanguinis, salivarius, or maybe pili. After the Streptococci group, the second group of bacteria which is important is your lactobacilli, followed by your actinomyces. So the mutant streptococci, it is identified in the year 1960s by Case. We all know the famous Case triad, the circles which we draw. And the main bacteria implicated is your mutant streptococci. It has been found that the dental plaque concentrations of mutant streptococci in children with ECC range from an average of 30 to 40% to over 50% of the total cultivable plaque. That means total 50% of the cultivable plaque could have mutant streptococci. In breastfed children with rampant decay, mutant streptococcus levels were 100 times higher than in children without decay. And heavy infection by mutant streptococci of more than one clonal type reflects high frequency of sugar consumption. So as you can see from these 3 points, you come to know that ECC is going to be caused by a variety of factors. Mutant streptococci synthesizes the alpha-1,3 rich water-insoluble glucan uniquely from sucrose. It produces 3 different glucosyl transferases, that is your GTFs, each with a distinct affinity for particular surfaces, and it synthesizes the intracellular polysaccharides, that is your IPS. It produces large amounts of acids, particularly the lactic acid. The acidity is extremely high. The molecular basis for high acid tolerance resides in their ability to pump out the proteins from their cytoplasm by the ATPase. Within 3 months, virulent bacteria can account for almost 75% of the oral flora. Like other gram-positive organisms, the Streptococcus mutans produces its own antibiotic, which is called as mutacins, which inhibits the growth of other streptococci and the other gram-positive organisms by stopping the enzyme functions and generating the ATPs. And the production of the mutacins varies amongst the isolates of the Streptococcus mutans. Now, how does this mutant streptococci get established in infants? We all know that the oral cavity is sterile at birth. It has no microorganism. And the mutant streptococci requires a non-shedding surface to colonize. That means the tooth surface. The infection rate of mutant streptococcus increases with age, as well as the number of teeth present in the infant's mouth, because it increases the number of retentive sites for its colonization. Some infants are infected in the age group under 1 year old, coinciding with the time of emergence of the incisors. How does the mutant streptococci get transmitted? Well, the mediator is saliva, and the most common routes of infection are close contacts, especially with the mother who is the primary caregiver, everyday nursing items like pacifiers, baby bottles, or maybe spoons. A minimum infective dose is necessary for implantation. Later on, that gets enhanced by repeated inoculation. The primary carer of the infant, usually the mother, provides the reservoir to mutant streptococci, which infects the child. Now, maternal factors increases the likelihood of mutant streptococci, because if the mother has herself got a high level of mutant streptococci, about 10⁵ in concentration, then definitely the child will have a higher amount of mutant streptococci. Secondly, if the infant has a close personal contact with individuals having high levels of mutant streptococci. Number 3, breastfeeding. And number 4, sharing of utensils and sometimes pre-chewing of the food by the mother. And the factors that are present in the child that could increase the colonization of mutant streptococci includes epithelial changes. Like if the child has got cleft palate or Bohn's nodules, it will have more chances for the colonization of mutant streptococci. Number 2, the diet, especially with kerogenic solids which are started early, or the beverages, the sweetened beverages which the child has. And of course, number 3, poor oral hygiene. So determining the age of infection is needed for understanding the disease process and the optimal period to intervene with preventive strategies. Next, we come to window of infectivity. Now, window of infectivity is the time period when the children are at the greatest risk for acquiring mutant streptococci. In 1993, Page Caulfield and colleagues, they presented a paper with evidence to support a discrete window of infectivity for MS colonization. Oral bacterial levels of 46 mother and child pairs from infant birth to age 5 were studied to determine the age of acquisition of mutant streptococci. And it is found that the colonization occurs between 19 to 31 months of age, but it can also be seen as early as 10 months in some population. And well, it is said that a second window is speculated to occur when the first molars are erupting. So window of infectivity is a combination of frequent and close maternal contacts, cessation of lactation with its protective antibodies, an immature immune response, and last but not the least, individual susceptibility. The window appears to close after all the permanent teeth erupt. And once a stable plaque or a biofilm covers the tooth surface, mutant streptococci is less likely to be established. Children aged 2 to 6 years have been shown to be less susceptible to mutant streptococcus infection. The next factor is substrate. So we all know that sucrose, glucose and fructose, they are the arch criminal of dental caries, and they are the main carbohydrates associated with caries in infants as well. And they serve as substrates for the production of organic acids by microorganisms. Sucrose is used by mutant streptococci to form an adhesive polysaccharide plaque matrix, enabling the adherence to enamel and facilitating the implantation of cariogenic bacteria. A decreased salivary clearance due to low salivary flow during sleep and increased contact time between the plaque and the substrate significantly increases the substrate karyogenicity. The nursing bottle may contain bovine milk, human breast milk, sweetened milk, infant formula, fruit juice, or carbonated or non-carbonated soft drinks. The karyogenicity of the most common nursing bottle contents, namely milk and milk formulas, remains unclear. Bovine milk contains the disaccharide lactose at a concentration of about 4%, and human milk contains about 7% of lactose. Under extreme conditions or at very high concentrations of lactose, lab studies have shown that lactose can demineralize the dental hard tissues. So although milk may be considered anti-karyogenic, it is often the vehicle for more karyogenic substances. Mothers may add sugar to milk at sleep time, and this is associated with increased caries experience. Although human breast milk contains more lactose than bovine milk, this difference is not significant in terms of karyogenicity. Breastfeeding for prolonged and excessive period results in rampant caries in young children. So caries is associated with breastfeeding when the consumption pattern has large number of breastfeedings a day, prolonged breastfeeding, and frequent breastfeedings during the night, resulting in accumulation of milk in the teeth, which combined with the reduced salivary flow and lack of oral hygiene may produce tooth decay. And that is why though mother's milk is a boon, it becomes a bane when these criteria are met. Frequent sugar consumption via a sweetened feeding bottle, soft drinks and sweets early in life could promote a high consumption of sugary items later in life, emphasizing that dietary habits developed at a young age are hard to break. The next factor is your salivary factors. The major role of saliva in the host defense system is the oral clearance of substrates and the buffering of acids produced by the dental plaque. The antimicrobial systems that may help in the elimination of bacteria include lysozymes, lactoferrin, peroxidase enzymes, agglutinins, secretory immunoglobulins, and glycoproteins. The clinical significance of these individual microbial systems is not well defined and they may act synergistically. The pH buffering system of the saliva includes carbonic acid, the bicarbonate, phosphate, and the proteins. Continuous feeding of sugar at night time when the flow rate of saliva is lowest increases the caries risk of the infant significantly. The next is the immune mechanisms. The host immune mechanisms involved in dental caries function to prevent colonization by bacteria and curb the pathogenic activity of cariogenic bacteria. So which are these immune mechanisms that are involved? You have IgA, which is present in the saliva. You have the serum or the gingival clavicular fluid, in which there is IgG. And then you have non-specific antimicrobial systems, which is derived mainly from the saliva and the phagocytic cells that transroots through the gingival crevice. There has been little direct evidence implicating these components of the immune system in dental caries in humans. In infants, these host defense systems may not be well developed. There has also been no verification of the speculation that IgA passively transferred to breast milk may offer some protection against dental caries. So we do not know for sure, but definitely these are things to be kept in mind, and probably when the salivary flow reduces, the caries sets in. The very important factor is time. It is a very important factor which determines the caries activity. So more the time the child sleeps with the bottle in the mouth, higher is the risk of the caries, because of course the salivary flow and the swallowing reflex decreases, thus providing more time for the accumulation of carbohydrates in the mouth, which are acted upon by microorganisms to produce acid, leading to caries. And then there are some other predisposing factors apart from the ones discussed before. These are your psychological and some behavioral factors, which includes your race, your ethnicity, your socioeconomic status, general diet, oral hygiene practices, and cognitive factors regarding the caretakers of the infants with ECC. Regular brushing with fluoride toothpaste may have a greater impact on caries development in young children than advising them to restrict sugary foods, because dietary changes are difficult to sustain, whereas encouraging toothbrushing may be more readily adopted.